Hi guys, this is our Pathfinder to Mars engagement presentation. You'll be hearing Hannah, Kendra, and Skyla. So the first thing we want to talk about is placing the interface in front of potential users. And the way that we did this is that we wanted to collect the most valuable feedback that we could get for you guys by giving it to people that we found would be most useful and help you to refine your designs into making it the best that it could be. We did this by collecting audio, which we'll play later, and we were able to get people's reactions and feelings to different parts of the app based on the questions that we asked, and then they were able to identify areas of improvement that they felt would help make the app better.
So we took the responses that you gave us, our interview questions, and we used those to figure out what your main points of interest were, and then created interview questions for our users based on your concerns. Then we gathered users who were in majors related to health and nutrition because they would know the most about the kind of apps you were creating. Then we interviewed them, analyzed their responses, and created this visual representation to tell you about our analysis.
Okay, so some of the methods that we used to gather data were adjective cards. So these help. So basically, what we did was we gave users a list of adjectives about how they felt about different aspects of the interface. So these helped us narrow down some of the specific feelings that they were having. And then we arranged these in kind of a pyramid scheme. So this helped give some structure to the questions and the adjective cards by kind of branching off of those answers. And then we had the users explain why they felt this way. So rather than just giving a simple adjective or feeling, we were able to pinpoint the exact reasons why they had this feeling about this specific part of the interface. And then at the end, we asked them some qualitative questions. So the structure of this let the user focus on specific elements of what they liked, what they didn't like, and how they could see the app being used, and also the overall function of it.
This is a script that we sent out when we were trying to recruit our users. We wanted to send everyone the same thing so that way they would know exactly kind of what they were getting themselves into. We tried to keep it as basic as possible so that way they wouldn't get overwhelmed and ultimately decide that they weren't interested in helping us. As you can see here, we listed our users by their major and their field that they're in. We focused, like Kendra said before, on kind of the food and science and engineering aspect, so that way they could really give the best feedback about the design and the function of the app. So we narrowed down the problems that you sent us and your concerns, and we kind of narrowed it down into 4 fields. Navigable being the first. We listened when you said that you were worried that they were not going to be able to find what they were looking for. We designed questions based around that and how they could find that information. Color scheme was another thing that you mentioned, and we wanted to make sure that the color scheme was not going to be overwhelming in any way. Identifiable icons, we focused a lot of questions on that and a lot of the information and explanation that we got from them on that because they were able to tell us if it was recognizable, if they were able to get enough information. And then finally, the fourth, the icon and text size, if icon with text helped them understand more, or if just the icon alone was enough for to help them understand.
These are examples of the questions we showed them in the interviews. These ones are for the blue design specifically. The numbers on the right show the adjectives that we had for each corresponding question. And then these are the questions for the pink design. You can pause the video if you want to check them out.
This is where we are going to give you the audio feedback for the users. We're going to play a couple clips and then we'll kind of give their explanation for what they said after. So here we go. Kendra's going to play a clip.
Okay, so here are some of the comments for specifically the icons on the blue design.
They're kind of confusing.
Okay.
But the reason why is like I think like just like the color of, because it's like all the same color. So I think they like when I look at it, it's like kind of like they're all like baby blues. They all kind of look the same. So like I feel like my mind just gets kind of confused. But then when I look in the images, then like I definitely can tell what they are for sure. But I would say the only thing that's kind of confusing is just like them all being like the same like color.
Okay, so that user was confused specifically upon first glance of the icons. She did bring up that they were all the same color, and that's what kind of was the reason for her confusion. Was she looked at it and they all looked very similar, and she was not able to decipher one icon from the other very easily.
These don't mean anything. That, how many hours I biked, that one might be sleeping. I honestly could not tell you what the other ones are. That one looks like you need to go to the hospital.
So for this user, she was specifically concerned with the page where they're all in a circle. She thought that they were hard to distinguish from one another, specifically, as she mentioned, the one that's supposed to be showing fitness, it's a bicycle, and then the one that is supposed to be health related, I think it's like that Band-Aid with the cross line in it. And to her, it seemed a little bit odd that they weren't more universal and weren't symbols that people were more familiar with that we are using today. So the next one is, how would you describe the overall navigability of this design? This was important for us to include because we wanted to show you that people thought that the design overall was very easy to navigate, and only one person had a difficult time with that, and the majority thought that it was very easy. The next two things that we wanted to focus on are how useful we think this app would be on a space mission, and how do you feel about the communicator and the purpose it serves. For the one about how useful we think it would be on a space mission, we chose to include this in the presentation because useful and functional are two very different aspects. And so many of the users said that it was not quite functional, which you can see in the raw data at the end of the presentation, but they thought that it would be very useful. And that's why we included it, is because almost everyone thought that the information was useful. Then about the communicator, we wanted to include that on the blue design because that was something that was on the last page and we weren't sure that it was going to be communicated. So we made sure to include a question, and then we have audio feedback for that.
Yeah, kind of confused.
Okay.
Like, I think like if you needed help, it's cool that you can message or talk.
Uh-huh.
But like, I guess I don't know why you need a communicator.
So that user was confused just about like the part of the app that allows you to communicate. She just more had questions about who you would communicate to, and then why it would be necessary to have a communicator on a food and fitness app.
What's a communicator? This? Mm-hmm. I need this for here.
So this user was talking about kind of the navigability of it. She felt that it should be more towards the top where all of the apps are in the circle, and that it would be better laid out there because then you could see it right up front and then you'd be able to find it if you needed to communicate. Moving on to the pink design, we picked 3 of the most useful graphs and questions that we thought would really help with going a long way to help the design. So we focused on the icons, navigability, and how useful we think it would be on a space mission. So we have some audio feedback for that as well.
Okay. This first one is about the icons on the pink app.
Confuse you.
Why do you think it's confusing?
Because you have a circle with like a dash in it for a bicycle.
Oh. So it's just like unclear.
Yeah. And like the gym status circle with all those like checkers in it, like, I don't know what that means.
So that user was just confused about what the different apps would be. She was also confused, just like the first user with the pink app, just upon first glance, but she was more confused about the symbols used rather than the color to show what the different icons were for.
Functional but confusing. Because like parts of it like make sense, and then part of it I don't really know what information is trying to be like portrayed. Yeah.
So that was more about the navigability. That user, just going through the app, she had some more confusion about some different aspects. She said that it was just like a lot. After using that for a while, she would probably be able to figure out what the different functions did. But just using it for the first time, she thinks that it would take a little bit of time to learn how to use the app.
And then we have one more clip about the icons for the pink design.
Space. The icons are fine. They're not intriguing. They're not helpful. Why is it pink? Shouldn't it be like cool space colors? Like that's the background you chose. You could have done like Hubble pictures. I'm so mad. Perfect.
So this user was talking about a couple different things here. The icons she thought that were a little bit confusing just because they were kind of more different from each other. When she was talking about this, she was specifically talking about the part of the app where it shows the percentages like food intake, exercise, heart rate, those types of things. She thought that that was kind of confusing since it was put into a pie chart form. She thought that it didn't make sense to have it in that form specifically. And then about the color, I don't think she realized that you could change the color palette. So we also wanted to focus on how useful this app would be for a space mission. It got the same feedback pretty much as the blue design, is that people overall thought that it would be useful. And the functional part is, again, different. And so we wanted to focus that people thought it would be useful and also functional.
So here are some recommendations from our users. They said that the blue design looks a lot like your regular Fitbit or MyFitnessPal, and they suggest making some changes to make it more specific to a space mission instead of something that already exists. They talked about that orange-red sun-looking icon. They didn't know what it meant, and they felt that it was kind of alarming looking because of its color. So they suggested making some changes to that to make it more clear, and they needed a lot more explanation on what the communicator was, who you're talking to, and what does it do.
And also for the blue design, the user and AI function right at the top of the app, a lot of the users were confused as to what the AI meant. And then for the pink, a lot of the users were not a big fan of the pink color. As soon as they were told that the color palette was an option, they were more interested in that, but they suggested it be more visible so that way they were able to find it easier. Another question that I got from my users was what the purpose was of having a login option for the interface, and if it would need to be logged into every time you wanted to use it. And then I had one user who said that there would not be weights in the gym as they would not be able to weigh down due to the lack of gravity. So on this final slide, it is a spreadsheet of all the raw data that we have from all of the questions, and you can take a look at that and you can pause the video if you want to look at it. And thank you for listening to our presentation.